How do I maintain my faith when I hear things like, or how do I respond when people say things like, the fact that the heavily translated Bible we have today isn't anything like what it was when it was written over centuries by different people and edited by people with different ideologies? What do we do with that? We're going to discuss that in this video. This video is a part of a larger series of videos called The Disciple. If you go to our YouTube channel, Bethel Pittsburgh, and go under playlist, you'll find a playlist titled The Disciple. And in there, you'll find that the title of each video will say The Disciple, and then a category. This category, and they're arranged in category order, and this is under the category of Apologetics, which is the art of defending the faith, particularly the Christian faith. And you'll see there's a number of videos that we've gone through already, and we're working through different things now, like objections to the Christian faith. I've found some arguments on Reddit about what people are saying the top arguments are against the Christian faith, and these are actually coming from opponents of the Christian faith. And again, that statement was number 6 on the list, on a person's list of the top 7 reasons why the Christian faith should be rejected. And again, it reads this: the heavily translated Bible we have today isn't anything like what it was when it was written over centuries by different people and edited by people with different ideologies. So the claim simply is that what you're reading in print form or digitally as the Bible isn't anything like what was actually expressed in the first century and earlier. And so what do we do with things like that? Well, I'm going to show you a few things. I'm going to put some links in the description below so you can do some additional research, but I'm going to show you a few things first and then kind of think through the dynamic of what's happening in a situation like this. So first of all this does is mark my notes here, but all this does is what they're saying, it does have some truth to it in the sense that the Bible that you're reading now is one of 100 or more translations, English translations of the Bible, and they're translations from manuscripts. Up until about the 1500s, you did not have a printing press, and so what you would have are handwritten copies. These would be referred to as manuscripts, and the material that the manuscripts are written on. So you would have a manuscript. This is why you see in the Bible saying Jesus opened the scroll to Isaiah, because it was a handwritten copy on a scroll. So you would have these copies, and the materials that these were being written on are the things that archaeologists and such would use to be able to date how old, maybe some historical surroundings around it as well, a particular manuscript that will allow them to determine how old a particular manuscript is. Not the date of the writing, but how old the manuscript is. And so there's been thousands and thousands of manuscripts, and these manuscripts have dated to the furthest point for a while, for much of human history, back to around the 9th century, which is 800 years removed from when they were originally written. And so what we're counting on is that the copyist had copied accurately. Now, another issue is that because of the many manuscripts, we're able to compare and see that there are differences from one manuscript to another. But because some people will point out that there's about 200,000 to 400,000 variants between manuscripts. Now, the problem with this, and I'm going to leave a link for how you can research this situation as well. The problem with this is that many of what's adding to the number is sometimes, depending on how people go about counting, sometimes if you have 1,000 manuscripts and one of those manuscripts misspells a word, just one word in the whole Bible, and remember the Bible's a large document, but one word is misspelled in one of the 1,000 manuscripts, then that counts as 1,000 errors, because that one is different than number 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, and each comparison counts as an error. Not all count this way, but that's one of the reasons why the number gets so large. The other is because that the vast majority of the variants are actually just a difference in spelling of a particular word, or the difference in spelling, the difference in some kind of punctuation, or the sentence order, but rarely are these variants actually affecting meaning. And that's what the accusation actually is. And that's what you will actually see with people who make these kinds of claims, is that they've not actually dug deep into this. They just have come across surface material of there's 200 to 400,000 variants between the manuscripts and the Bible, and then their conclusion is, so that means that this isn't trustworthy. But that's foolish, because you're not actually looking into what's taking place. The variants are rarely affecting the meaning, and what they're saying is because there's variants, then we don't have the same meaning, the same message being conveyed, and that isn't really anywhere close to the truth. And if people were just to be honest and do more research, they would know that. So that's one of the issues that's happening there. Now, as to the comparison of the manuscripts and the only having one to the 9th century, one event that did make that change, I want to say, I'm providing a link for this, that'll give you the exact time period, but I want to say it's the 50s, somewhere in the 50s. Somewhere in that range, I might be off by 20, 30 years, but somewhere in that range, somewhere in the 1900s, a set of scrolls were discovered called the Dead Sea Scrolls. And these scrolls were dated to the 1st century, even earlier for some of the Old Testament manuscripts. And they have found that these manuscripts contained most of the Old Testament, I think a lot of the New Testament, and again, you can read this for yourself in the link, and the manuscripts are lacking in variance. It's, again, particularly with meaning. If we set aside some grammatical changes, some structural changes, and maybe some difference in spelling, as far as saying the same thing, the similarity between these Dead Sea Scrolls and the manuscripts we had coming from the 9th century are so spot on, which means that over the course of 900 years of copying, they were still that accurate, which speaks to the accuracy of this process of copying manuscripts for the biblical text. So again, when people are pointing out certain details that are correct, there are real details, but they're making conclusions from them that aren't really anywhere near accurate. And so if we look into these things and see these things, we'll see that is the case. Plus, thinking through the teams that translate these English translations. And so just for example, I took the ESV, and I have a link for this as well. The English Standard Version, and most English translations will have a similar type of history behind its translation. I think sometimes people think that one person is going to the manuscripts and giving their own take on it, and that's not at all what's happening. In the ESV, there are 15 individual experts that are involved in the oversight committee. Now, that's just involved in the oversight committee. As far as the entire team of translators go, the ESV involved 100 scholars on these teams. These are biblical scholars, these are cultural and historical scholars, these are language scholars, and all these guys have to agree with each other on how to translate the entirety of the Bible. That's a lot of work and accuracy that's put into these efforts. So there's a lot more going on than to just like playing a game of telephone. Well, I heard this message, I'm going to give my own rendition, and then over time I'm going to mess this up. This is not at all like that kind of process. Yes, there is taking manuscripts and copying it from someone else and then from someone else. And yes, these people are coming from different cultures and ideologies. And yes, you got one team and another team coming over periods of time, going back to these manuscripts and translating them into different languages. Yes, that's happening. But again, if you understand what the process is, that is not at all indicating for us that there is there's a lack of having the same message today as there was in the first century and earlier. Another factor to consider is why people are having this problem. Actually, another thing I wanted to throw in there is this claim that because of the cultural and ideological differences between us and those of biblical times, is so great that we cannot possibly get the meaning. There is truth to that. There's a significant gap between us and these cultures and these histories, but that does not at all say that we can't get to the meaning. What it's revealing to us is it takes some work to get to that meaning. And so when you run into things, when you study the Bible, you are going to have to study some to actually get the right meaning. You can't just come at it with no knowledge. You are more at risk of getting the incorrect meaning. And so you have to do different things to get to that. And some of those things that you do is study culture. And there's all kinds of text and books and things of that nature that are available to learn the biblical culture, biblical history, to learn the languages, to learn what's happening there. And you can do some work to try to be open-minded so as to realize what culture that you're bringing to the table when you come to the Bible. And you also can keep studying the entirety of the Bible, and the more you do that even, you're going to get better understanding of what's taking place. There's a lot of the culture and the historical information that's inside the text of the Bible. And so it's just, all it means is it requires some work to properly interpret and apply the Bible, but it does not mean that we don't have the tools available to us to get that. And so when people make that kind of claim, on your end at least, know what's happening so that if you know the truth of what I just shared with you and what you can look at with the links and even some of your own research, this won't throw you off, because that's foolish. That's such a simplistic analysis of what's happening, superficial way to approach it, and their conclusions are so faulty. And that is what's happening. When you're interacting with someone who makes these claims, you're going to want to be much more gentle about that. But you're going to want to use questions, and you're going to want to push back on it a little bit. And you'll know how to do that when you're more knowledgeable. So I encourage you. We're called to be able to give an answer for the faith that we have according to 1 Peter, I think it's 1 Peter 3. So do that. Learn, study to show yourself approved, be prepared, and then you won't, because of the issues like this, lose your faith, and you may help someone see the light. If you have any questions on that, please leave that in the comments below. I'd be glad to answer them. Or if you would like to grow in your faith in person and you live in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, we would love for you to join us. We are Bethel Assembly of God at 2501 Staten Street. We meet Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. and Sundays at 10 a.m. Or if you can't join us in person, we would love for you to join us by live streaming. We stream our Sunday 10 a.m. services live every week at our YouTube channel, Bethel Pittsburgh. We hope to see you then, but may God richly bless you.